Hey, everybody. Today I'm here with Cassandra, the Saffron Sage, and we're going to be talking about the nodes and the nodal axis in general, skip steps, planetary rulers of each. Why don't you start it off by talking about why you love the nodes so much, or what you find most interesting about them, or whatever you want to share.
Okay. Hey guys, I'm Cassandra, and I guess, when I started learning astrology, the nodes are one of the first things I actually learned, which isn't normal. Most people start with like their sun and their moon, but for some reason I was just drawn to the North Node, and it really explained many, many different layers of the challenges that I had in life in a way that I'd never heard of before and was pretty simple to actually apply and start, getting out of the patterns of my South Node. So really, my initial draw to the nodes was purely self-interested before I was even doing astrology readings. And I found that the more I tried to practice my North Node, the more I really found kind of this new layer of healing, and just like an ability to slow down. And some of the other areas of life started to just fall into place a little bit more. And so, there was that side of it. Now, when it comes to working with clients, I love the nodal axis because it is so deep. It's so deep, whether it's, our own evolutionary journey of our soul and our past lives, and then also like the way we connect with other people and the placements that unite the nodes and how much those are like that soul family or those soul contracts or whatever you want to call those. And um, it just gives our experience, I feel like this added layer of meaning, which having a Sagittarius stellium, and anyone out there who has Sagittarius energy knows what I'm talking about when it just like understanding what things mean or why things are the way they are. It feels so fulfilling to me.
Yeah, it really does it. They're able to really touch on something. I mean, the whole chart touches on something personal, but these particular parts really, really do. They help they help people understand things in a slightly different way than just, oh, this is, this is where my sun is and this is where my moon is. And it, yeah. Or, my mom, for instance, she has her South Node in Libra, and she's always said, like, any test that she took about like zodiac signs, what zodiac sign she should be, she always came back as Libra. And I was like, oh, well, this is funny because this is where your South Node is. So this kind of makes, I mean, not that she's a Libra, but that energy is familiar to her in,
Totally. And sometimes I think, when it comes to past lives and the themes that we see play out in our life, these topics are a little bit harder for us to fully understand and articulate because they're so nebulous and they're so like fleeting, or they come to us in dreams or in just these little subtle nuances. But to have someone articulate it in actual words out loud and explain it, it almost, for a lot of people, it can be a healing experience just to have your north and south node delineated because you can feel that underlying sense of it being true before you hear it, but you can't always like grab it and put it into words and make it tangible.
yes, I agree very, very much. Absolutely. Um, so I know we were talking a little bit about like how you do it. I know you incorporate some things that I don't. Tell me about your process when you, or
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
people what your process is.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always going to start and just look at what sign is the South Node in. And we know, astrologers know that the South Node stays in a sign for about 18 months. So it's not the most personal, just doing that. So then we look to, I mean, one, you can look to the modern or traditional ruler if it's a sign that has both. And then you can look to the house where those lie. And so, I'll start with the sign and then I'll add in that house and then I'll look for any skip steps. So planets squaring the nodes. And then, the ruler also of the North Node and kind of tie it all into a story. Um, and I'm usually, whenever we're looking at the South Node and past lives, I really do read it tend toward the negative, because not because everyone's only had negative past lives, but because that's the energies we're here to sort of heal. Those are the overlays that we're going to feel and resonate with the most. And, most people, whatever the gift of their South Node is, it's not something they usually need help figuring out. Usually it's like you already have it. So you don't need to uncover it usually. Um, but yeah, I mean, that's just a little bit about the process, but I combine like the archetypes of the different planets with a little bit of evolutionary stuff with the evolutionary meanings of the different signs and planets, and just kind of put it all into a story. And then, with clients who want to go even further, I do offer like a combo reading where I actually bring in tarot, and we don't just stop at what the astrology chart says. We actually can pull cards to get a little bit deeper into that past life story. And it brings it into more of a healing, because then we can look at what energy you can focus on to move forward. And while the chart does have the North Node, and that is one way to look at that, there's just something about using the cards and bringing it all together that really helps, in a way that really nothing else can. I don't know even how to describe it very well, other than it's just very, very powerful.
I like that. Tying the two together and kind of well, there's a lot to usually flesh out with the South Node story, right? And everything. Sometimes adding in tarot can kind of flesh it out even further. And yeah, no, I like that. I like
It
that.
does,
And
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead.
It does tend to clarify some of the details, because, like if I look at South Node in Aries, right, I'm going to see someone who was probably a warrior, or they had to defend themselves, or, they had to embrace that archetype of the warrior, the fighter. But I don't always get the details from the chart specifically. It takes a lot of like combining all the different aspects to get details, and it's still, I don't always get every single specific detail, but when I use tarot, it helps me to make the story kind of fill in the gaps, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I bet it does. I can totally see how that would how that would work. Absolutely. And I was going to say, I kind of when I read the notes, I kind of I kind of veer on a more challenging end of this with the South Node as well, because like you said, there are things that we like the gifts that we have from there. We don't need to we need to take those forward in the North Node, right, and not stay stuck in the South Node. And also, even people that have really nice lives, right, or seem like they had really nice lives in previous lifetimes, there can be issues with that too. There can be, somebody not being able to say stand on their own. They may have had care and love and all of this, but they weren't able to stand on their own. Say, even really nice lives can, you know.
That's a good point, because it's like I always use the word master. The South Node is the energy you've mastered, but that doesn't mean you were successful at it. It just means you did it. You lived through
Yeah,
that particular energy, and like an energy of ease doesn't really allow for challenge, right? And then like an energy of truth
yeah,
doesn't allow for like confrontation, or like I mean, I think from a soul perspective, not always from our human perspective, but from the soul perspective, we want to do it all, right? Like we want to know what it's like to be betrayed, and we want to know what it's like to have someone be loyal to us. And even though when we're in those challenges, maybe we don't always feel that way. I don't always feel that way. But like from a higher perspective, I still can see why our soul wants to live through these different problems, because then when you have the solution, it feels so much better. It feels so much more like a completion and a wholeness when we have the positive side of something we've already suffered the negative side of.
and an appreciation, even, like a yeah, 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 for sure. Now I know you bring the midheaven in when you do this, which I think is cool. That's not always something that I bring in. I think that's cool that you do. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually pretty simple in terms of how I do it and how I sort of teach on my channel for people to do it. Because a lot of people are kind of confused because the midheaven is sort of taught as like an evolutionary point as well, and so is the North Node. So this brings up questions for people where they're like, what if my midheaven is opposite my North Node? How do I go in both of those directions? Or, other similar kind of things where it's like, how do I do both of these things when they're on totally different levels? And um, I use them both. I usually what I tell people is follow your midheaven in career, follow your north node in life, just to simplify it. So that if someone has like
Uh,
their midheaven and their north node in their fourth house, like you can't go both directions. Like you know what I mean? So it's hard for people to understand that. And I think the North Node is sort of misunderstood because sometimes people think, especially in the Western world, we equate career with life purpose. We just
yes,
automatically
we do.
assume you're supposed to be doing that for your career. And I don't think you can't, I think you can. I believe you can. And I believe that, it's wonderful when people have careers that they love. I'm trying to do that too. So I'm not against that. But I do think that it could support us to separate those things a little bit sometimes and look at our purpose as like, what we're here to learn. And that might be slowing down. It might be taking risks. It might be something much more soul oriented and a lot less, masculine, I guess.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's yeah. Yeah, there's this, yeah, sometimes I'll get people that'll ask that question too, like, is the North know what you're supposed to do for career? Or, because they do, it's like life mission, life purpose, or one of the places. And yeah, I find that those don't always converge. There might be a way to play with it to make them kind of converge, but not always.
Well, and if you do get a career where you're using your North Node and your Midheaven, you should consider
Then
yourself lucky, I
then it's
think.
like,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. And I also I've noticed I feel like people with planets on their North Node will tend to have like oftentimes they'll have careers, they'll naturally get into a career where they're using all their North Node energies. And I think those planets just kind of are little guidance, are little like extra little helpers.
Yeah. Why don't we talk about that? Planets conjunct like the South Node and planets conjunct the North Node. How do you feel about those, or how do you look at those,
Yeah, so I look at it through two lenses. One is like the past life characters, like I see it as whatever's conjunct your south node. This is like who you were, the role you played in a past life, and whatever's conjunct your north, and like what happened to you. So like maybe someone with Mars conjunct their south node could have been murdered, right? Like that's one potential. But then like if you have it on your north node, usually this is someone else around you or someone who opposed you. That's how I read it for the past life story. But then for the evolutionary side, I look at it as the north node planets. They are really like aspects of yourself that support you in stepping into your purpose or energies you can focus on. So, like if someone has Mercury, for example, it's possible that writing or communicating is like a step toward their purpose. It wouldn't be it because whatever sign, unless it's like in Gemini, but whatever sign their North Node in is like the purpose, but writing could help or speaking could help get them there. And then
yeah.
for planets conjunct the South Node, I would see it more like um, energies this person is going to experience that are probably not pleasant usually, um, themes that they're going to have in their life. And now they could be part of the gifts. Like you can find what the gift is in that energy. So even with Mars again, like maybe the gift is courage and they happen to
Yeah.
be really courageous. And that's something that they have to find a way to use that to go toward their North Node if they want to be following the evolution of their soul. But really, I think the South Node planets, they do tend to pull us a little bit back toward that South Node. So those people, myself included, have to work a little bit harder to like separate sometimes from those energies because they have it already within themselves. But that these are going to be energies you're just going to probably experience in life.
Yeah, kind of what you're what you might be just kind of comfortable with, or comfortable. Comfortable isn't always comfortable, but yeah, yeah, that that makes sense.
Or just even themes, like themes you may not always be able to get away from, honestly, is kind of how I see the South Node. And I personally have Pluto conjunct my South Node, and it's not an easy one. I wouldn't recommend that one. It's like the power struggles, the theme of power and powerlessness. I'm probably not going to get away from that theme in my life. Now, am I always going to be forced to be powerless? Maybe not if I can learn the right lessons. Maybe not if I'm following my North Node, right?
So that makes your Pluto polarity point like conjunct the North Node, right? It's
Um,
like Pluto's opposite, right?
yes.
Opposite that, yeah. And I actually think that might mean that you don't technically have a Pluto polarity point if they're conjunct. I don't always read it strictly like Jeff Wolf Green does, but like he has in his books. But I think technically, but whatever. That's cool. That's actually really cool. It kind of really drives home the your nodal axis even further, like having them both right there.
It does. It's interesting. And I've actually talked a lot about this on my channel just because it's a personal placement. Having Pluto and Scorpio conjunct the South Node in Scorpio, I think it's like within 2 degrees in my chart. But a lot of people with Pluto on their South Node end up in like these situations that are kind of abusive, or like that they can't, like they don't have the power to get out of. And it's like that's a huge theme for people with that South Node is powerlessness and
What
learning how
house?
to, me, second.
Uh-huh. Second. Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah.
I know I've seen your chart, but I don't remember it right off the top of my head. So sorry, I was just curious. But yeah, power stuff for sure.
But yeah, I mean, that's true for anyone with any planet is that, that theme is going to be way, way stronger in that person's life, and it's not, I try not to frame it as good or bad. And I really like so many people when they have the negative expression of their South Node, it's like these are the kind of things I don't think you can just manifest your way out of without really slowly and gradually learning the lesson of the North Node and really like deliberately um, following that. And so it can be really healing and helpful to just know what those energies are. It's so like
Yeah,
validating for people.
absolutely. Yeah, it helps. It kind of just helps things fall into place and make sense. And like, this is why things
Hmm.
are how they are, like, or, internally anyway. Yeah. What about skip steps?
Yeah, skip steps are so interesting because what they say and different astrologers kind of have a little bit of a different way of explaining this. So I've heard that it's like a lesson you have to learn before you can move toward your purpose. And I've also heard that it's more of a distraction that you can actually accidentally go down thinking that this is your purpose. And really, you're sort of veering off into something that may not actually quite get you there. So, either way, it's still about learning that lesson before you can really move toward your North Node.
um, and you don't have any, right?
I no, I think I do, but I guess it depends on what orb you use because I think my south node is at 8 degrees and I have Jupiter at 15. So if you use a wide enough orb, I do. Which
What
I mean, I use wide orbs, but not everyone does.
I was gonna ask, that was gonna be my next question. What do you use when when you read, kind of?
In general, for the past life in South Node, I actually use wider orbs than I do for everything else. So I would use about 10 degrees of the South Node or 10 degrees for a skip step. Um, just because that's consistent with the course that I took for that. But for everything else, I would use 3 degrees, or unless it's with the sun, moon, or rising, then I use 10.
Okay, yeah, yeah, that makes sense. That makes
But
sense.
I also, I mean, I'm a little bit flexible. If something's 4 degrees, I'll still delineate that, but I just don't consider it as strong of a influence.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. What about um what about when you see skip steps? Let's say you've got the planetary ruler of the North Node as a skip step, or the
Oh,
planetary
okay.
ruler or the planetary ruler of the South Node as a skip step. What would you
Yeah, it's like that. I mean, it's interesting because it's it's like it's just I just interpret it as like stronger. It's a stronger theme. That North Node or South Node is a stronger theme, and it's um yeah, I mean, I usually in that case I'll probably look at the sign a little bit heavier just to figure out what else is happening other than just that South or North Node sign energy, if that makes sense.
it does. And I was just thinking about something. When you said that sometimes some skip steps are read as like something that you didn't get quite right in a past life or as something that could be a distraction in this lifetime. I'd actually really never heard that part before, but I wonder if maybe the planetary ruler of the North Node being a skip step, I wonder if there could be something about distraction in that kind of case.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know what
because
yeah,
yeah.
I was just that kind of just popped up. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm going to play with that a little bit.
Yeah, it does make sense because it's like and sometimes too, I'll just read the house as well to like
Uh-huh.
just to kind of give it an extra layer of the past life story or, the this life lesson, whatever house that squared planet is in. They're super important. That's really the main thing though, is like skip steps are really, really important. And the person who has a skip step is going to feel that. They're going to usually when you start talking about this could mean this or this, they're going to be like, "Oh my God." And they're going to tell you everything that happened to them. And it's usually something people really, really relate to strongly.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, Definitely. Did you did you want to do an exam? Like kind of like look at it and
Sure.
I know we talked about this before. And do you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna try not to fuck this up here as I try to share content. Hold on. Okay. Okay. Can you see it?
Yes. I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here.
Full disclosure, this is mine because we have the clearance to use mine. um,
Okay. So, I mean, do you want me to just kind of tell you what I see in it?
you can, or you can just kind of show if you want to do that, you can, or if you want to just kind of show your process with a chart, you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever you want to do. You don't have to actually like do a full
Okay.
reading or anything like that.
So it looks like it's okay. I'll be honest, it's a little small on my screen, but I can see it. So you have South
Ooh,
Node at
is
zero
that
degree
bigger?
of Libra. Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so South Node at 0 degree of Libra and looks like squaring over to okay, so let me just see. It looks like is Neptune's the closest squared planet
um, it well, yeah, well,
by
kind of.
degree
I've always kind of counted Venus and
and the moon?
Uranus.
Ah,
I
okay,
don't
Venus. Okay.
I've never counted the moon, but you can if you do whatever you want. You should This is about you showing your process.
Okay,
I'm
so
just curious.
yeah, I mean, usually I'm gonna start with like South Node Libra. What does that mean? And then I have like the archetypes of each South Node. So South Node Libra is gonna be like someone who was an assistant or a wife in a past life, someone who was supporting someone else and helping them live out their potential. So immediately that North Node's gonna be about taking the lead. And then those skip steps, that Neptune, that's the first one that caught my eye. So I'd look to Neptune and Capricorn, and I'm going to look at what house that's in the first house. So immediately with Libra in the 10th, with Neptune in the first, we're looking at the theme of like self versus others being really, really, really strong. So, like in this life, potential challenges with how much to give, when to do what you want to do. And having it be on the 10th and the 4th axis is interesting because it's like, I would add in that layer of like family versus career, or and I would just keep adding each layer to the story. And so usually by the time I'm done, it's different than whatever I thought in the beginning.
Yeah.
Just because each layer adds something, right? And so then, with South Node in Libra, we're going to look to, you already mentioned Venus, and that makes sense that you asked that question because you have that South Node ruler as a skip step. So that is interesting. But then I would look to, for something like this, I might actually start with what is Venus in Capricorn? What is Neptune in Capricorn? And I would think about, how Neptune rules delusion and sickness and spirituality, and then how Venus rules beauty, and how like Neptune and Venus could be like Hollywood glamour. That's like one potential combination of those. And being in Capricorn, like maybe you had a past life where you were a movie star kind of a thing, or you had a parent who was a movie star, and you had nothing for yourself. Everything you did was about somebody else's goals for you, because we have Capricorn and we have Libra. And so, I mean, I would just keep going with that and just continue to add in that house placement as another layer, and until it feels complete.
I like that. Yeah, I know. And when you start out looking at something like this, or a chart in general, you can just kind of like stare at it, and like what you see at first is not always what you end up with, for sure. I was just kind of curious about what about the for the North Node. You would then look at where the North Node is by sign and house,
Hmm.
and then the
Hmm.
planetary ruler of each of it.
Yes, and I would look at, you have your North Node in the 4th. I noticed that it's at a 0 degree. That's an important degree to me. Being like it might be the first time having this North Node. It might be really, really new energy. Um, which could show up as it being just a lot more unfamiliar, a lot more scary to take the lead, a lot more like something you have to push yourself to be really courageous. And yeah, then I would look at where is Mars? Where is Mars in the 11th? And that's also at 0 degrees. And look at that aspect there. So
Yes.
yeah, and I would factor that into the equation. So, factoring in the feeling of the aspect. Is it tense? Is it awkward? Or is it easy? That's going to show us how tense or awkward or easy it might be for that person to,
Awkward.
yes, to embody that energy and to feel okay doing it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thanks for kind of showing how you would do this, and all of that. Let me see. I'm gonna turn this thing off. Okay. So when we talk about when people talk about the nodes, and I know that I mentioned this question to you earlier, and it's just kind of something interesting to toss around. Do you do you think that some people are born to do certain things or be a certain way? And I know that kind of is fatalistic, and I'm not usually a fatalistic person in the way that I do this. But there have been some charts that I've looked at, and I'm like, holy shit. Like this what maybe they became known for, say, or what, I'm looking at the charts of famous people here. I'm thinking they really did embody their North Node in like the bad guy way, or in the good guy way even, right? I don't know. How do you feel about that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's totally possible that that's true. And as far as like some people are here to provoke, or some people are here to play the bad guy in someone else's story, because otherwise there are no heroes, right? There can be no heroes if there's no bad guys. So it's kind of like that whole argument that like you can't have light without dark. Like we really can't exist in a world without polarity. And so we can't all be good guys. like we
Yeah.
just can't. But what's interesting though is usually all of the bad guys think they're the good guy, right? Like, so we all think we're the good guy, even when we are not being pure of heart, right? Like, even when we're being a little too aggressive, or whatever the case may be, we always think we are the good guy in the story. And so, and I've heard this talked about that, like, some people actually agree before we come to Earth to be the bad guy in someone else's story to help them. And
I yeah.
go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I've wondered. I mean, I don't know where I stand exactly on that, but I do wonder about that kind of a thing myself. Is that, I mean, anything's possible, but that idea is very interesting.
I think it's possible, and I think it's probably true that I mean, I don't think I don't think people always enjoy it while we're here on Earth necessarily, every single thing. And I don't personally 1000% believe that we sign up for the chart that we have. I know some people do. A lot of people do. A lot of people think we chose our charts before we came here. And I mean, I have clients who think that, and there's nothing that I do against that, but I don't hold to that belief, because I think there's a little bit more chance involved in being human, and I think there's an agreement or an understanding that, like, we don't have control over everything. And so I think I'm
Yeah.
getting a little off topic here, but
No, that's fine.
it's totally
Go for
possible that there's
it.
like some people's souls want to experience the challenge, and that they're like, okay, I'll go help humanity by being a bad guy this time. We don't know, but I think also too, when it comes to like working with people, I'm always going to want to help them see how they can be the good guy in their own life. Like, I don't ever want it to be like, oh yeah, now you can just go do whatever you want, and like, you know what I mean? I don't think it's totally like that, but then again, it kind of ties into shadow work too, because like, the
It
more
does.
that we accept our own bad guy, which we all have within us, sometimes part of the healing is accepting I'm going to be like this, right? Like, sometimes part of the healing isn't about clearing the energy out of yourself as much as accepting, like, okay, maybe I'm not always nice, or like, that's something that I had within me a long time ago. I know a lot of women do that. It's like I have to be nice all the time, and that was like part of my shadow of
Mhm.
like not allowing myself to ever be confrontational. And it turns out, in my draconic chart, I have Mars conjunct my ascendant. I'm kind of a confrontational person naturally. And so, I mean, so taking it from like the archetypal to the personal of like, where am I the bad guy? And maybe I'm not a bad guy, but that like it's okay to be confrontational, and like not feel so bad about that aspect of who I naturally am. And I mean, that's the beauty of astrology too, and one of the beautiful things is that there are some things we just are. And,
Mhm.
we can try our whole lives to make ourselves be someone else, because it's not spiritual to be angry, or, whatever we're conditioned to believe. And we can be just fighting against our own nature for so long if we don't really understand ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah, making friends with make I was actually talking to somebody about this the other night, making friends with your demon or with your whatever, or at least acknowledge, maybe you don't have to be like best friends with it, but acknowledging that it's there, and that does tend to help quite a bit. Um you mentioned the draconic chart. Do you work with that in this sort of I do. Do you work with it in this sort of work?
Sometimes I do pull the person's draconic. I'll use it to see if there's any planets on any angles or any conjunctions, just to kind of, see that extra layer of the person's soul kind of, coming in.
Yeah.
And then I'll also use it to sometimes to remedy things, right? So like, if you have a challenging moon sign and you don't know what to do about it, the draconic chart is one way, looking at your draconic moon and seeing if you can embody those energies. It's not like you have to try hard to become your draconic chart, but I do feel like I do like the idea that we're sort of our goal is to step into those energies. And it's not
Mhm.
about like abandoning our natal because we can't, but that we can consciously cultivate any energy of the zodiac if we want to within
Yeah.
ourselves. It's just a matter of knowing what to focus on that's really going to help us, I think.
And pulling it from like the undercurrent of, bringing it up. Yeah. Yeah. That stuff is super fun to play with. Enjoy
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I like the draconic. It's just so like, I don't know, it's just one of those more fulfilling things, just like the notes. It's like it hits you at a soul level.
Yes, it does. It touches you in all the right places. That sounds weirder than I meant it to, but but yeah, yeah, it hits all the right notes. Um, is there anything else that I didn't ask about? Because I didn't take notes on what I was going to ask. I just did it on the fly. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you feel like I should have that you would like to address now?
The only thing I can think of is like, the more constructive use of past life versus the less
Yeah.
constructive use, which is like, I mean, I know you and I have talked about this before, but it's like, you can use past lives to escape from this life, and as a story and as entertainment, it's not really going to do you a whole lot of good that way, but it's really when we're in a place where we're like, okay, how can I work best with these energies? That's how to use the past life. Is like, how does it affect you in this life? And I think one of the reasons why past lives help us so much is because it's one step removed. So like something that would be really, really hard to face or something that a direct answer wouldn't really give you anything about. Those are the kind of things that past life work can really support us with because sometimes it's like it satisfies our brain or our ego's need to know why, while giving us a solution, whereas sometimes, if I like with my South Node, money issues have been part of it, but someone just telling me be self-sufficient would not have solved that for me. But me reading that my North Node is about self-sufficiency is like enlightening, even though it's the same information, because while it's giving me this information, it's also validating the experience to begin with. So sometimes we really need that soul validation to come to a deeper place of acceptance before we can do the healing work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Things have to make sense first. They have, and then you can start. Yeah, then you can start the work that. Yes. Yeah. Um, I guess that's pretty good then. Um, you want to let people know where they can find you and
Sure.
all that good stuff?
Sure, yeah. So I do readings. My website is thesaffronsage.com. I also have a YouTube channel, an Instagram, Facebook, all under the same name, The Saffron Sage. And I have a Facebook group called Astrology and Alchemy. So those are
Oh,
places
cool.
where
I didn't know
people can
about
find
that
me.
one.
Yeah,
That's
it's
cool.
yeah, it's there. It's there.
I did, bitch, and I'll go check that out. I didn't know about that one. I knew about the other ones. But yeah, definitely follow her, subscribe, all that stuff. I'll put in the description box. If you're watching this, yeah, this will be on YouTube. So on in the description box, I'll put the links of where you can find her. Check her out. Well, I guess we'll get going. Thank you for coming on. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I did too. And I will see all of y'all out there later on. Bye.